Oh, really?
It's about 5 after 7, so we're going to get started. I'm going to use this microphone, even though we are going to use microphones, even though it's a small room. But we have Patty Dallas back here recording the event, so hopefully the microphone will help with the bigger sound and the recording will be a little bit better. Welcome to the information session on running for local office. Thank you all for being here. It's really great to see everyone. I'm April Wolford. I'm a local business owner and activist. I'm working with Miriam McQueen right there on a project with the Yellow Springs Community Foundation that promotes civil discourse and local democracy initiatives. So we have a pilot program running over the next 3 months that will have a series of events, including a public forum that we're planning for August, and a few other events. So keep your eyes open for some of those other events. Hey, sure. I also will be serving as the moderator for this panel. So again, thank you for coming. I'm going to introduce the event. So essentially the schedule of what we're going to do and what we're going to cover here for the program tonight, which will run until about 8:45. And at that time, hopefully you'll be able to stay and help put away some furniture. The chairs, we have to be out of here by 9 o'clock. So we'll break up at 8:45. So we'll start with Ellis Jacobs, who's going to talk about why effective democracy is critical at this time, local democracy in particular. And then Mayor Pam is going to give us an overview of the various governing bodies, how they work, the kind of work that they do, maybe how they work together. She's got a lot of good information over there to share. And then around 7:45, I'll be asking some prepared questions of the elected officials here. And then around 8:15, we'll open it up to the audience for Q&A. So you'll have a chance to ask questions at that time. It'll be about 30 minutes. And then again, around 8:45, we'll wrap up. So, and then to start off too, we have some ground rules, so I'll introduce those too. The purpose of this session is to provide information about our local governing bodies and the election process of those bodies. This is not an opportunity to raise complaints or concerns about individual officials or issues that are here. So I'll be moderating to that end. So that's the purpose, is to talk with them about their experience, what they've learned in the process of running for office and serving in front of them. Please be respectful. Treat all speakers and fellow audience members with respect, and if you disagree. Listen actively. Please listen fully to each speaker without interrupting. Limit your side conversations, so especially in such a small room, it would be distracting if we're kind of having side conversations with each other. Please wait to be recognized before speaking. We have just 2 microphones here, so we'll be passing the microphone around for the Q&A and whatnot. When we get to the Q&A session in particular, please wait until we bring the microphone for you to speak. And then if you would stick on the topic, again, the topic is running for office, so this is your opportunity to talk about that with these folks. Be concise. When you're speaking, please be brief. Think about a 2-minute limit. If we get close to time, then we'll probably moderate more closely to that topic. And help create a welcoming space. We want this to be a space for all, and assume everyone is here in good faith. And then follow the moderator's guidance. That's me. I'm here to ensure fairness and order, so please follow directions if I provide them. All right, so we're going to kick off with Ellis. Ellis is going to talk about why it's important to run for office.
Thanks, April. Gosh, it's nice to see everybody. This is an auspicious gathering. I mean, not just up here, but out there too. I look at so many people that have actually done this work, and I haven't, so I'm not exactly sure why the heck I'm up here. But I have the easiest job because it's like I'm supposed to explain to you why this is important. You're here tonight, so you obviously think it's important already. But off the top of my head, I can think of a couple of things that I want to talk about. Everybody likes to talk about sort of the coarsening of our political discourse, and that's obviously a big issue in our country right now. And other people want to talk about how social media has got everybody distracted and staring at their phones all day long, and nobody's engaging in any meaningful way, etc. And that's really important too. But local democracy is a nice antidote to those sorts of things, if you think about it. I was at a meeting last night. I see other people that were at this meeting last night. We were all crowded in this little room over here, and people were droning on and on. I mean, not me. My thoughts were 50 and to the point. But other people, they were talking on and on. And it was so interesting that people had really good things to say. Even people I disagreed with, they had smart, articulate, they'd given it some thought, and when we were done with all of this, I think folks felt that they had been heard. And so a couple of things have to happen in order to make that possible. And that's why I think, deciding to run for office, you can engage in some of the behaviors that facilitate that, the good stuff that comes out of sitting in a room hearing people drone on and on. And one thing is to be the person up on the dais who's really paying attention, is asking questions, is engaged, etc., who's telling the people who took the time out of their lives to come down and talk that what you say matters. Even if I'm not sure I agree with everything you got to say, it's really valuable. And so that's an important message that people who get elected can send by the way they conduct themselves. You can also do other things that engage folks in the community. I know Lori over there, when she was on council, used to send out these emails, not to everybody, but to a whole bunch of folks. And she'd say, this is what we're going to be talking about, and here's what I read about it, and what do you know about this topic, right? And so she was engaging a wider bunch of folks in a very kind of ad hoc yet profound way, I thought. Other people will set up opportunities to meet with people downtown or whatever it may be to draw people out of their houses, get them off their phones and engage and talk about local democracy and how they can be heard and those kind of things. Now, so that's one reason why you might want to do this kind of work, because you're the kind of person that wants to use the democratic and political sphere to build those sort of feelings, that kind of community feeling. But maybe you're more like me, which is I try to get involved in these things because there's something I want to accomplish. There's a policy I want to see adopted. And this may surprise you, but if you care about things like fairness, equality, fighting against discrimination, working against climate change, that's not the direction the federal and state governments are going. And we all know that, right? They're marching as fast as they can away from those various ideals that many of us in this town really hold dear. What's the one political space that isn't headed that direction? Local government. And so you can do some important things to further those ideas as a local government elected person. Now, my wife is a recently retired teacher. She pays attention to stuff going on at the school. So I don't have to, but I do pay attention to stuff going on. Well, you got to have a division of labor, right? So I pay attention to what's going on at village council when I can, and I want to just credit past village councils for things they've done that maybe people don't quite register. Housing. A number of years ago, somebody could tell me how many years ago, we passed an ordinance that regulated Airbnbs in this town. I don't know if it got noticed the way it should have, but it probably saved dozens, if not 50 or 100 relatively affordable apartments in this town from being turned into Airbnbs over the time it's been in existence. We passed an ordinance, they passed an ordinance not that long ago that makes it against the law to discriminate against somebody in paying their rent based upon the source of their income. So in other words, if your income comes from the government in one way or another, your landlord can't decide that makes you the kind of person they don't want to rent to. And stuff like that used to happen. So we're kind of out in front, we have been out in front in areas like housing to do good things, to accomplish good things. Maybe you care about utilities and you want to look at our utility structure, the rate structure in utilities. Does it properly reward conservation? Does it make sure that people that are less able to afford it are taken care of? these can be accomplished in the realm of public policy. One other thing, and then I'll stop ranting on and on, is like our public facilities and our public spaces. We value those here. And you, as an elected official, has an opportunity to make sure they're protected and augmented. Good example. Public swimming pool. How many public swimming pools are there remaining in this area? One. This one. This one. That's it. And council adopted a policy to try to get the fee structure correct so that everybody could afford to go to the public swimming pool. That's really important stuff. You get to do that as an elected official. So I encourage you to engage in this important work. You can help bring us together. You can help accomplish really good things in this village that swim against the tide that's rolling in every day. And you can help us build, at least within these confines, something that we can be proud of, and that maybe can serve as a model for other people, other places. Thanks.
Thanks, Ellis. Next, Mary Pam.
Well, you know something, I roll old school with this sort of thing. I notice I'm the only one up here, I think maybe, or one of two that doesn't have a telephone out here. I came with a book and a newspaper, and some of those old-fashioned kind of things that I still like to use. So I'm going to be sharing, as a former educator, I brought these props with me, and I'm going to be showing you. We don't have a computer hookup and the PowerPoints and all that stuff, because you know how you get going on those and then something's not working, and the next thing you know, 10 minutes have gone by. So I decided to do something a little cruder because I figured it would be a smaller crowd here tonight. So I'm going to be holding up some things and pointing out some things. And I also got my notes, so I'm already a minute into my 10 minutes. So I want to tell you that my job being here this evening is to explain the three political bodies that we have here in our area, in which Yellow Springs has political representation. There are three bodies that have elected officials, and I'm going to give you a very brief synopsis of each one of those. So trying to keep it as brief as possible, yet cover the basics. I want you to start with picturing a Venn diagram with three circles with the intersecting middle. In the middle of that Venn diagram is going to be the one thing that each of these three bodies have in common at the forefront of their mission. The Village of Yellow Springs, Miami Township, township trustees, if you will, and the Yellow Springs Exempted School District, and more on that word exempted in a little while. But with our Venn diagram right in the middle, you're going to be seeing the one thing that all three of those organizations have in common, which is their function. And the function of those three organizations is to provide the best service possible for those they serve. Yeah. Right on. That wasn't truth, was it? Yeah. Okay. Truth.
I was there.
There you go. All right. Provide the best service possible for those they serve. I spent a lot of time in the last few days on websites for each of these three organizations, and one of the big commonalities I saw in trying to draw out and reduce a function was that to serve. To serve. We are here to serve, to be of service to the organizations we represent and the people for those organizations. Now, when rooting, and one thing I wanted to point out to you before I got going was in rooting around for information to share in this presentation, I came across about a 2-hour video on the village website for the Village of Yellow Springs. It's called The Joint Meeting. Brian Hausch was in it. He knows what I'm talking about. It was a joint meeting with representatives from Township. Chris, you were there. Rebecca, representing school board, she was not there. Who was there at this meeting? Somebody from the school. Oh, okay.
Judith.
Yeah, Judith was there. And Village Council, of course, Brian, you were there, and other officials as well. And this 2-hour meeting, you will find it if you go to the Village of Yellow Springs website, go to the opening page, third tab, the last tab rather. It's called, for some reason, it's called the cost of living. But what it is a 2-hour video where we've got school board people, village government people, township people, and sitting around the table talking about what the mission is and what each of those groups is was concentrating on 2 years ago when this was taped. So sitting there watching that reminded me of a lot of the commonalities that we have, starting with that mission to serve our population, and then going off into some of the outlying regions of that the Venn diagrams where we have differences. So what I want to point out now are some of the commonalities and some of the differences of each of those 3 different elected bodies. Now, first thing, in no particular order, first thing I wanted to share with you is the organizational structure of each one. I'm going to start with the village government. One of the things I did as mayor, I have two charges as mayor according to the charter and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs. This is the charter of Yellow Springs. This little skinny thing is the charter of Yellow Springs. It comes from the front of this big book, which is the Yellow Springs Codified Ordinances. Now, the charter notes that in its preamble, the preamble says, for the charter of Yellow Springs, and you'll see as we go on how these intersecting Venn diagrams, sort of reduce the different types of governance structures that each one has. But listen to this one in the preamble. We, the people of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, in order to secure maximum benefits of local government and to promote our common welfare by efficient organization for the management of our village affairs, adopt the following charter, Article 1. And then it goes on exactly like the Constitution of the United States. It's about 15 pages long. It provides the framework for our operation here in the village. Now, this thing is the copy of the codified ordinances in the Village of Yellow Springs. When I took this position back in 2018, I actually sit down with this thing, open it up randomly, codified ordinances of Yellow Springs, take a look at it, especially read the part about the traffic laws, because that really pertained to what I was doing with the board. But this thing has everything in it that you need to know about village laws, because that's what they are. Now, in just a bit, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the difference between this and the ORC, the Ohio Revised Code, which is the big official overarching code for the laws for the state of Ohio. But because we are a home rule governing body here, we get to do some things a little bit differently. And when I get to the school board and we're talking about Yellow Springs exempted village schools, those words have a lot in common, so I want to save my thunder for that. So we got the codified ordinances of Yellow Springs. Anybody who wants to run for mayor has to memorize. That's what I say. And again, because I run old school, I like to keep this thing handy, but really it's all online, because obviously you just punch in a number and there it is, and it's easier to change and so forth. But I want you to see how many of those things we've got.
Well, it keeps you in good shape too.
Plus it keeps me in good shape. Speaking of that. Now, one of the 2 charter-defined jobs that the mayor has. Number 1, the mayor does all the ceremonial duties in the Village of Yellow Springs, AKA proclamations, parades, I can do weddings, I can cut ribbons. In other words, what I like to describe is all the fun stuff. But then the second by charter duty of the mayor is to run the mayor's court. It is a statutory court. We must follow the rules that are in the codified ordinances for the village and so forth. So doing the fun stuff is the fun stuff, and running the court can also be very interesting, but it's very serious, and we take it as such. Now, because we are a home rule state, which means if we subscribe to certain legal followings, we can be a little flexible with how we design our government. So we did in the outline of what I like to call our village flow chart. Now, I don't care wherever you're sitting in this room, if you're back there where Amy is and so forth, you can still see the colors. You can't read anything on it, but you can see the colors. So what you see at the top are the village citizens of Yellow Springs. The citizenry elects the village council. And it's the village council right up here that is the governing body for our village. Citizens elect the council, and then if you were close enough to follow all these lines down in our little flow chart, you will see that in this blue box, regardless of where you're sitting in this room, you can see the blue box. You've got everything else that goes along in the village. You've got the boards and commissions, it's the lawyer, the clerk, the council, the village manager, zoning, planning, all the commissions and so forth are in that blue box. Everything for the village is under that blue box except for one thing. The yellow box. The yellow box down the red line. There's two red lines coming down the yellow box. And the yellow box is the mayor and the mayor's clerk. Boom. Two people. We stand alone. Okay? And that's important to know if you're running for mayor. You will not be attending staff meetings. You will not really be interacting much with the council or anything. You are allowed as mayor to sit on the council, to talk with the council, to talk with the public and listen and participate, but you can't vote. The only person that ever did that was Jean Barlow Hudson, who was our mayor from 1988 to 1991. She spoke with, I got you. I still have 6.5 minutes. She spoke with council, she participated in discussion, but she didn't vote, and it wasn't a beloved characteristic. So it's on my toes not to do. But anyway, our village of Yellow Springs, that I want you to keep this in mind because I'm going to show you a couple other flow charts now. I still have 4.5 minutes left.
You've got time.
Okay. Our village government, let's see, what else do I want to cover with that? Oh, remember, our main goal, to serve the people of Yellow Springs, but we also create our own village goals, our village values, which operate in tandem, and so forth and so on. These goals are published every year and presented through village council meetings, etc. Now the township of Yellow Springs. I want to show you, going to their website, I've got what I call up here Maryland's Fun Facts, because Maryland provide one of the trustees, again I refer to their website, Maryland, and we've got Chris sitting here too, Marilyn, Chris, Don Hollister, and Gina Gunderkline, who's here as their financial officer, fiscal officer. All right, so she handles the money. Miami Township, from their website, fun facts, as I read this, tell me if you knew, think of it yet, but I know this stuff about the township. Miami Township is primarily a rural township in which the village of Yellow Springs, Clifton, and 25 square miles of surrounding farmland and rural dwellings exist. It's one of 12. We got 12 townships just in Greene County. That's a lot of, I didn't know there were that many. 12 townships. For the 2020 census, we have a population of 4,927 in the township. with 3,697 of those people living in Yellow Springs, 127 in Clifton, and 103 in the unincorporated area outside of the township. Now, let me just show you what this looks like. Yellow Springs is in white. Everything else is in green, and real dark green is John Bryan Park. But even where you're sitting, in the very back of the room, Cindy, can you see all this green? Okay, that is Miami Township. So you can sort of get a ratio of size and so forth. So they have not 5 council people like our village have, but they have 3 township trustees. What are their main jobs? Their main jobs are 4. Fire and rescue services, cemetery administration and maintenance, maintenance of township roads, and zoning and land use. Am I correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
So those are the 4 things that the township takes care of. Our roads outside there, fire rescue for the entire township, hence our new, thank you, Callahan, our new fire station downtown, maintenance of the roads, cemeteries, and then zoning and land use. So they have, as mentioned, 3 elected trustees, and again, Gina is the chief financial, I'm gonna call you the CFO, but you do the fiscal stuff, okay? For the board of trustees, a quorum is 2 members and so forth. Unlike the village of Yellow Springs, here's our fun fact for them. Unlike the village who has home rule opportunities, the township does not. They must follow strictly the Ohio Revised Code. Now, in the 2.5 minutes I have left, I don't know why I keep looking, I forgot to wear my watch today, so I just keep looking. Gotta be neat for Yellow Springs Schools, boom, here we go. Here's our very simple flow chart of the Yellow Springs Board of, I guess we'll call it the Board of Education. Board of Education, we have a president, vice president, and 3 other members. There's 5 members total in our Board of Education for the Village of Yellow Springs exempted schools. The Board of Education gives direction to the superintendent and the treasurer, who are their staff people, if you will. Is that the way to look at it, sort of? No, it's not.
But that's okay. That works.
This works, because we have staff down here, but it's going to include faculty. But the Board of Education hires the superintendent, the treasurer, and then underneath them, they manage the principals of the various schools and the different directors, the facilities director, the special education director, the student services director, and so forth and so on. And then, of course, underneath them are the staff and the teachers, faculty and teachers. Now, here's where I want, and of course, the function of the board, if you read the statement, it doesn't differ that much from the statements for the village and for things that are printed on the post for the village trustees. The Yellow Springs Exempted Village School District of Education sets educational goals. It establishes policy, oversees the management of the district, including hiring and evaluating the superintendent and treasurer, serves as a body of financial stewards for the district, serves as a link between the district and the public by maintaining 2-way communication. This is from their website. A board member's first and greatest concern must be the educational welfare of all the students attending the public school. So that sort of sounds familiar. They are their citizens, if you will, the people to whom they owe their due diligence, their care and concern. Yellow Springs is an exempted school district. Exempted. Now, what does this mean? It means they operate independently from certain state or county educational oversights, allowing for greater local control over educational decisions and governance. Sound familiar? It's very similar to a home rule allowed by the state of Ohio under the ORC for the village of Yellow Springs and other small towns, if you will, villages to operate with a little more freedom. In other words, we can do what we want as long as it does not supersede the Ohio Revised Code. As long as we stay under the auspices of the Ohio Revised Code, we're okay. So the same thing with an exempted school district. The key characteristics of that: local governance. There's a building that sits at the corner of East Enon Road and Dayton Street, and it's called the Greene County Educational Service Center. That is the Greene County Board of Education for the smaller schools in our district resides there. Yellow Springs has their own Board of Education. Representative is sitting at the front table today. Because we are an exempted school district, we are allowed to have such exemptions, create our own Board of Education as one. As long as we can successfully complete performance benchmarks, there are several that the state demands, we can keep our exempted status. And we do that quite well. For example, Yellow Springs, I checked it today, Yellow Springs either exceeds or significantly succeeds in all the areas that are required to be an exempted village school. We're doing great. I taught there for 30 years. We were doing great then, and we're doing great now. So it's a really wonderful opportunity to be able to be a little more creative in what we're doing in our school system. Now, and I'll give you a good example. I don't know if they're still doing it, but back in the day, we started the emphasis on project-based learning, PBL. There's nothing in the codes about PBL, but it's something that our superintendent at the time thought would be a good idea, put that into motion. And for several years, project-based learning, PBL, was a feature at our school. So allowing for this sort of uniqueness is part of what makes us exempted as long as we're following the rules and maintaining the benchmarks, which we are. So I like to say in Mayor's Court, local control for local issues. It's the same thing in the school district. Local control for local schools. It's the same thing under home rule for village council. Local control for our local home-ruled Yellow Springs that we all love so much. Thank you. I got 10 seconds. It's been 8 weeks teaching that civics course.
So that was the crash course, right?
Crash course.
That was the crash course. Thank you, Pam. That was a great overview of how they work together, and I certainly learned a lot about those governing bodies. And thanks, Ellis, for getting us inspired for that. All right, so the next section, we're going to do these prepared questions with the panelists. And the panelists are Rebecca Potter from the school board, Carmen Brown from Village Council, Chris Malter from the Miami Valley Trustees. So I'll ask them, and then I'm just going to pass this microphone over to them. Each of them are going to introduce themselves briefly, and then I'll answer the question. Again, after we wrap these up, then we'll open it up to the audience for Q&A. Peter, what do you say?
Kind of this night, we had to pass the mic.
Yeah. All right. So you want to go ahead and start, since I think it makes more sense to just go down the line as opposed to try to wiggle it around in alphabetical order.
Me? Or no? Who do you want to?
I want you to. I'll start, but I'll ask the question first.
I bet you wasn't listening.
I do when you answer the question. So the first question is, what tips do you have for potential candidates about campaign efforts such as costs, forms people need to fill out, and critical tasks that you need to do for the election? And so if you just briefly just introduce yourself and then flow into your answer, you're great. Good.
So, hello everyone. I'll hold this far away because I also am an educator, so I speak loudly. And thank you for coming tonight. It's a really great turnout. And also thank you, Marianne McQueen and April Walford, for organizing this. Thank you, Community Foundation, for sponsoring this event. This is how I think people who aren't necessarily friends with a current elected official or are just thinking about running or just want to learn more about the process can get through that door. And that's really important because I think we know in the village or in any community, there will be a group of people who just know a lot and a group of people who want to know more and don't really know how to step in. So some of the advice I would have is that if you know people that you think are possible candidates for office because you like how they think, you think that they've got it together, they might have an interest, talk to them. And of course, if you are interested, talk to anyone here in this room and talk to us because that's I think the purpose here tonight is to really motivate others to run. So I'm the current school board president. I'm not up for election. My term is a 4-year term, and in 2 years it will be up. So just like the other offices, it sort of rotates. This election, there'll be 3 open seats for school board, and then when I ran for office in 2022, there were 2. It just kind of goes back and forth like that. I've already forgotten the question, but it had something to do with what I'm supposed to.
Tips about costs, forms,
Okay.
the process.
So I went to the Greene County Board of Education as I was doing some errands in Xenia. So first of all, the Greene County Board of Education office is in Xenia. Elections office. It's also BOE, yeah.
Yes.
The Board of Elections office in Xenia where the BMV is. And they are open till 4:30 p.m. and you can pick up the forms that you need. The main one is to get signatures. They have a special form. You have to fill it out, and it's a pretty complicated one. I think that these forms are back there for you to look out and even get. You have to get 25 signatures for running for school district office, and they encourage you to get 50, get double the amount that you need. They will not take more than 75. So my advice, I actually got a lot of advice from people who have served in local office. I know Marianne McQueen had a great method. I started too late to do her method, but she sent out a letter to all the people that she knew saying she was interested in running and to contact her if they were interested in supporting her. She did set up then a database, and so that when she got signs, she had places to put those signs, right, in yards. And then I talked with Judith Hepfling. She was one of the people who talked me into office and told me how it would be good to get a treasurer. Some people do their own kind of treasurer work. You don't have to have a separate treasurer. For me, it was really important to have that person. That almost would have been a deal breaker. I probably wouldn't have run unless someone stood up or did that work as treasurer. It's a very simple job. I was amazed that people gave me money to run, but they do. They give you $50, they give you $100. I needed $1,200. That's how much my campaign cost. That was mostly signs. And then a flyer in the Yellow Springs News. That was pretty much it. It came to $1,200. And that was all the money from friends and even people who I didn't know, but who liked what I was talking about and wrote me a check, which I gave to my treasurer. And we had an account set up, a checking account set up at US Bank. And these were all simple steps, but talking to someone who has done it and also going to the website for the Secretary of State or the Board of Elections lays it all out. So I will pass it on.
For me, it was a little different. I didn't have a treasurer. I chose not to have a treasurer because it was something that was income. It wasn't something that I could afford to do. And it's so simple that you can, if you know a little bit of math, you can really take care of it on your own. I was under the impression that it would be cost prohibitive for almost 2 years, and so I didn't run. And then I did a little bit of investigating on this internet that we have, and I also went to the BOE, and it was, we need, it's 40 signatures, about 90 days before, so August before the election.
August 6th.
So 6th, right, and then, varies by a couple days depending on the election. But the most important thing for me, or the thing that I really that was stuck in my head, is to get these signatures and to make sure that everybody's signature matched what's on the Board of Elections website, so that the addresses matched, the signatures matched, to verify those signatures. Because if you say you have 50 signatures, but 20 of them are thrown out because someone lives in the township, there are a lot of people who signed my petition who live in the township, and I was like, thank you, and I don't sign, but I understood that was grounds for them being kicked out. The other piece of it is that when you get the forms, it's pretty self-explanatory, and they do a really good job at the BOE of explaining exactly how you need to fill out the forms. The person that circulated the petition for signatures is the person that needs to do it. So if you have someone else do it, that person needs to do that whole form. And if you do it, you need to sign it, and that needs to be your form. And if you have another person do it, it needs to be your form. Let's see. What was the other part of the question?
It was mostly cost and forms and critical tasks, so that probably covers that portion.
Yeah.
There'll be others.
And I did have some support from some community members who did like heavy volume sign making and stuff like that. Anyway, they made catalogs for the business that they have, and they made my signs. So that was cool. That saved me about $250. So I would encourage people who are interested in running to run, and not to be put off by the cost, because it can be done. It can be done inexpensively. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Chris?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. Appreciate your time. My name is Chris Mucher. I'm the current chair of the Miami Township Board of Trustees. Elections, yes. To start with, I just want to relate a piece of advice that I received a long time ago from a friend of mine who was also a Beaver Creek Township, long-serving Beaver Creek Township trustee. And he said to me, simply, run like you're behind. Do not take anything for granted. I've used that advice on every election that I've had. And I don't know the feeling, but I would hate to look at the internet at 11:30 at night, find that I was 3 votes short, or 1 vote short, or anything like that. And didn't tell myself I did everything that I could to have gotten elected. I've used various methods to campaign. Signs, people love them, people hate them. They're pretty much probably the go-to for local politics. You need the name. You need the name recognition, however you can get it. I ended up, I think, generally putting around 50 signs out, predominantly in the, a lot of them in the incorporated area, but probably more than half in the unincorporated area of the township. A lot of those country roads are not that well traveled. Yes, you want to get your name out, but it's more effective to get your name out on a road where there's a lot of people driving by. So I just, I would have a certain set of roads that I would concentrate on. I also always use personal letters to all the voters in the unincorporated area. You can get that simply off of the Board of Education, I started too. Board of Elections website. You can get a list, name, address of all the voters in your district. And I would just make a form letter, unfortunately, but I would personally sign each letter and I would personally address each envelope. So hopefully the person who received it didn't just see the sticker on the front and toss it immediately. They had to at least open it up and then toss it. But the 1 year, or maybe it was 2 years, I had the bright idea that I would get emery boards with a miniature for trustee on the emery board, and I put it in every single envelope. My wife laughed at me. She said, I think I got more votes off of those emery boards. And every once in a while I see one in somebody's house that I go. It's amazing. Advertising. It is important. It's a method of getting your name out. You need to use ads in the local media if you can. If you can afford to. Hopefully, you're serious enough that you are raising money in order to do those things. The money doesn't drive what you do. It just provides what you feel like that you need to do, that you have to do. Over the years, I've talked to many candidates for township trustee who were not fortunate enough to have been elected. And I didn't give them the advice because it was too late, but as their campaigns went on, I could tell they just weren't serious enough that they really wanted the position, that they went out and did what was necessary to make themselves known, either through advertisements or signage, or other means. You've got to run like you're behind. Don't take the election for granted. Unless you're running unopposed. I was once. That's a good election. I like
Yeah, Chris, could you speak to a couple things? One was, did you have a treasurer, or did you do that yourself? And then, we'll start with that.
Okay, I had a treasurer once or twice. The first few elections that I had, being newish at the job, as it were, I was fortunate enough to raise a fair amount of money, or at least enough money to cover what I felt I needed to produce. Also put some of my own money into it too. And I did have a treasurer those 2 times, I think. After that, the amount of money that I was spending was not that great, just because I was a known quantity, etc. So I made a decision to just self-fund my elections, and it was, $500, $750, something like that. I thought it was valuable enough opportunity for me to fund it myself. So that was the answer to that, I hope.
Yeah. And then, how many signatures do you have to have for the trustee?
It is also 25.
It's 25. And partly you're saying you collect more because they can throw those signatures out for various reasons. You're in the township or the signatures don't match. So that's why you get more signatures than is the minimum required.
Yeah, I always try to get, early on, I tried to get 50, 75, the maximum. Once I either learned or it was available that at the Board of Elections, you can go to a drop-down box that says voter information, and you can actually confirm that your signator is a registered voter. They have to be a registered voter in Miami Township, and that their name and address is exactly what they put on the petition. That's pretty much a confirmation that that's a good signature. So I think the last couple elections, I might have just had 30 or 35 signatures on it. I've made absolutely sure that each one was a valid signature. Hope that helped.
Yeah, that's very helpful. All right, thank you. Pam?
Oh, there you go.
Pam Conine, C-O-N-I-N-E. Mayor Pam was just much easier for those kindergartners I worked with to pronounce, so that's why I stuck with that. Next thing you know, someone's giving me a hat with a name on it, and this may happen to you if you're interested in running. And I always tell people, you will make it your own. Whatever it is, whatever the office is you're running for, especially something like mayor, where there's only one of you, you're not sitting with 2 or 4 other people, make the office your own. As far as advice, it hasn't already been said. Start early, start your campaigns early, so that you have time to get organized and get yourself a committee of your close friends or people who are gonna take care of you. Assign jobs to that, have a meeting early on and assign jobs to the different folks. Somebody I did want to handle money, so my good friend Kathy Roma was happy to be my secretary, treasurer rather, and so her name appeared as it's required by law under each of those signs. You have your person who's going to deliver and be in charge of the sign committee. Signs are allowed to be posted 30 days before the election, so on day that 30th morning, counting out, I wanted those signs to all appear at once. So the gal that was organized to do the sign distribution, she's the one that collected 10 other volunteers. Each one had an address because I'd already sent a letter out to folks saying, is it okay if a letter requesting many things. Send 10 or 20 bucks if you want or if you can. Can I use your yard for a sign? Will you write a letter to the editor? Will you talk to some of your friends? That way you're giving them options about how they can help you. You're not saying, can you give me $100? You're giving them choices on different valuable and important ways that they can help you. So when that letter goes out, then you've got your committee, and I had the most wonderful committee of friends. We called ourselves the kitchen cabinet, historical reference there. But they said, we will feed you, we will drive you, we will put your signs up, we will, rub your feet, whatever it is that you need, we'll take care of you during this campaign. And they were wonderful, and to me that made all the difference. So if you can get folks to help you so you're not doing it alone, plus they spark your thought processes and some things you might not have thought of otherwise. One other thing I want to be sure to tell you, even if you're not running for office yourself, if you know someone who think they would do a good job, talk to them. Plant a seed. That's what I'm going to call that. Especially if it's a younger person. Angie, I'm looking at you. I know you got babies and little kids, but I'm planting a seed here because one of these days you're not going to be doing what you're doing now. It's going to be 20, 25 years down the road. And that seed, oh, sorry, I didn't know what you were doing. That seed will have been planted and growing in Angie's brain for quite a while before she decides that yes, I'm gonna take a chance and I'm gonna do this. That's what happened to me. I was approached 25 years ago by someone saying, would you run for council? Immediate answer was, no, I'm working. I'm teaching, I'm coaching, I'm teaching adjunct. Life is too busy. But that seed lay there and it grew. And when another person came to me in 2016 and said, would you consider running for mayor? There it was. Because that had lain dormant for quite a while. I would not run for school board. I would not run for council. I respect what those people do way too much. They've got the hard stuff. But for mayor, hey, yeah, I was up for it and I ran. So committee, good organization, announcing early, those are definite tips I can give you.
I know we have 2 future elected officials back there, and the next generation, planting seeds this year for sure. All right, so our next question, and you guys have answered actually some bit, most of the top parts of the question, so we're in good shape on time. And so for this question, tell us why did you run for office and why do you think it's important?
Okay, well, just to follow up with what Mayor Pam said, I ran for office because a couple of people talked me into it, and that is pretty much how it went, and they had to talk a long time. And I remember Amy Mariana's in the room. I remember doing the same thing to her husband. She still considers me a friend, I hope. Talking him into running for school board, and he had a successful election. So you always appreciate that conversation when someone reaches out to you and thinks that you're capable of doing it. And so just to reframe what's already been said, do reach out to people. And it's also something that started when I was asked to serve on the Environmental Commission. So also, if you are interested in office, jump into elected office or find ways that you can be involved in village governance, like Mayor Pam showed us. There are a lot of boxes on that sheet, and a lot of them include people who serve on the commissions in other ways. I was particularly engaged in the conversations about the school levy for the building that we're in the process of building right now, the school buildings for new build and renovation. And I was very concerned about environmental issues and clean energy, and so this also seemed like a special opportunity for that particular election. So that's why I did it. And despite, sometimes it is hard work and a little tense, I have no regrets. And it is to go with the cliche. It is a way you serve, and there's a lot of reward in that.
The reason why I decided to run was because of representation. Working a full-time job, raising a kid, and being a member of the working class, I didn't see any representation. And that's why I ran. And having conversations with friends about things that they were interested in or concerns that they had politically, especially the things that are happening in the village in recent years, the fast change that no one is ever comfortable with. That's why I ran. Because I didn't see anybody who I saw people who had similar lived experience, and I didn't see anyone that represented my lived experience and the lived experience of friends, family, and a majority of community members. And the closer we got to filing the signatures and doing the work, the more encouragement I received from people. And so that's why I read.
That's great. Would you say that's why it's important also to represent?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you. Chris.
Many years ago, I had a close friend. His name was Bill Deaton. Hope that name still resonates a little bit here in town.
Not Beyonce Day the other day.
Yeah. It's like anyway, he and I would spend a fair amount of time together in his store. He'd come and visit me. I had a little business downtown for 28 years, and so we were across the street. And to make a very long story short, he was a former township clerk, long-serving township clerk. I don't know how long, but it was a long time. And he was just ending his work as the township zoning inspector, right around this time when I was starting to get interested in things. Fast forward, at this time, this is the mid-late 90s, somewhere in that neighborhood. I had an established family. I had an established business, which was going well. I just had this little thing in my head, that it's time that I give back something to the community that I was given so much to. Perhaps a few years went by, I'm not sure. But at one point, Mr. Deaton, Bill Wilbur, I always call him Wilbur, came to me and said, a township trustee in the name of Dave Billman is going to resign the position because he's moving out of the township estate, as it were. And he said, why don't you think about, running for township trustee? And we talked about the position, and he told me all about what goes on, and it all sounded like a good fit for me. But his one piece of advice was, do not undertake this lightly. This is not a job. Just because you get paid something every month, not a lot, but you get paid. You get free health insurance, you get free life insurance, fine, all that stuff. There's only 2 meetings a month. Hell, I go to 2 meetings a month, sign me up. It's not a job, it's public service. You're there representing the people who hopefully will elect you. When I had to run for election 2 years later, actually a year later. I really, really took that to heart. He was a wonderful man, a great mentor. Knew everything about everything in the village and of course in the township from all his experience there. And so that was kind of my mantra from that point on. I applied for the vacant position with some other folks. Actually, Gina's father applied for it. And luckily, I was fortunate enough to be appointed. And then I had run for the next election because it was a mid-cycle. I don't remember exactly how that works. Fortunate there. I was reelected 7 different times, and here we are today. And it is by hands down the most satisfying experience, work, opportunity, whatever that I've been given in my public life, professional life, I guess I shouldn't say public. I got to leave out the getting married and having kids. But the other one, this was hands down the best thing I've ever done. And we don't have enough time for me to go into how wonderful it is to be able to identify a project, carry the project through, see the fulfillment, and then go on to the next one or continue with the other ones. Pam, it's all yours.
Thanks, Chris.
Clearly, Chris, you never taught middle school.
Never have.
No. In my case, timing was everything. I had just retired from the Antioch West, from their faculty, and I was looking forward to a life of leisurely retirement when I watched Hillary Clinton's concession speech. I was sitting there slack-jawed, having worked on her campaign locally. I was sitting there slack-jawed at the results of that particular election, and all of a sudden, nothing computed. Then I listened to Barack Obama when he followed Hillary. And what Barack said was, and this is where it pertains to what I want to share with you, Barack said, if you want to make a change in the world politically, start locally. Start locally. And for some reason, that really stuck with me. And that timing, I say timing was everything because it was shortly after that one friend came, called first, can I come over and talk to you? Came over. Have you ever considered running for local office? Would you consider running for mayor? I think it's a position that would suit you, and some changes that can be made, and so forth and so on. So that's where it all started. And then, as I mentioned before, all the different components that go into running a campaign. But it was listening to Hillary and listening to Barack Obama, and that advice I'll never forget, start locally. So this is something you all can do as well. And I'm glad that was it you, Carmen, or Rebecca, who mentioned the commissions.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways that you can contribute to the village, which I think is something any of us that run for public office want to do. We want to give back. We've been fortunate in our lives. In my case, my dad was involved in local politics up in Northwest Ohio. I came from a family. We sat around the dinner table and listened to Dad talk about what was going on in the local, state, federal scene. He ran for office as a lone Democrat in a totally Republican county. Never been prouder of my dad than when he did that. He actually came close to winning. So I sort of had that in my blood and wanted to follow it out. So that's it. Start locally and get your committee, get your meetings, get your oh, another thing I wanted to mention to you is house parties. Schedule your house parties, call them what you will, but call a friend who lives in another part of the village and say, would you host a house party for me, a house gathering, invite 5, 6, 8, 10 of your friends, make some lemonade and cookies, and I'll be over at 7 o'clock on Sunday to explain my campaign. It won't take long, but would you do that for me? And get those house parties going, and that's another thing you can do.
Thanks, man. Thanks, everybody. That's great. All right, so we are we have just a few minutes, but I wanted to ask one other question, and that's that I think a lot of people think about when they consider running for office, and that's that elected officials can often face public criticism or feedback, which can be difficult to manage. So, can you talk a little bit about how you handle that as a person, as an elected official? What kind of support do you put in place for yourself? That kind of thing. So how do you handle that when you get that kind of public feedback or criticism?
Okay, I'll start. Go to the Gulch, get on Facebook. No, seriously. But I do want to say, because what you said, Pam, reminded me that I talked about people asking me, having conversations motivates you. But it was when I was with my daughter at the Women's March in Washington, D.C. in 2017, and people were saying, we need people in office. And I said, well, if someone asks me to run for office, I will. And someone did. Oh, crap. And I did not expect, even though living in Yellow Springs, over 15 years, I think it's going close to 2 decades, I've understood the passion of this community on issues. I did not quite understand what it was like to be an elected official during these very heated debates. And it is, of course, at times not easy, and I appreciate the Community Foundation's efforts to talk about civic discourse, which I think generally was what most people do. What I would share, though, another discovery, is that despite the moments where things are heated and tense, and you get the conversations, people will say, oh, can you go into Tom's Market, right, without being accosted, that kind of thing. I noticed that overall, there was a sense of respect, and most surprisingly, the passion for as intense as it is also brief. And over time, actually, just even a few weeks, a month, you think that this is going to be something that people are going to be talking about forever, and it's not. It just, we move on to the next issue, and you learn from those experiences a lot. I definitely appreciated learning a lot about myself in engaging with others with whom I don't always agree. Also my fellow board members, also just people in the community. It was a growing experience for me, and continues to be. But just that realization that, this too will pass, and you'll be moving on, and we'll all, smile at each other at Tom's Markets.
So I look at it like I have 1,510 bosses. And each of the 1,510 bosses has a different lived experience, has a different political experience, political take. Across the gamut, from incredibly conservative, which people are really surprised to hear this now, to liberal, to anarchist, literally. And there's no way that all of my 1,510 bosses are going to be happy with me all the time, and the opposite is true. But what I learned from living here and being raised here in this community is that it's possible to have, and this is a Bill Chappelleism, discourse without discord. It doesn't have to devolve into vitriol and name calling. And so the scrutiny I expect, and that's okay. Disagreements I expect, and it's possible that we can still deal with things in spite of the national climate politically, that we can still deal with things in a Yellow Springs way. But that's how you handle it. Now I'm not going to take it personally. 1,510 bosses.
It's a lot of
It's a lot of opinions. It's a lot of lived experience, and it's not anything that I don't take very seriously. And that's the perspective. Like, the only reason why any of us are here is because of everyone here. And I always try to keep that in mind.
Well said.
My math isn't great, but in the 450 Board of Trustee meetings that I've attended in my time in the office, seriously, I think there has been 2, maybe 3 meetings where there was some contention in the room. I think that's great. I've always appreciated the public who comes to the meetings. You can disagree, you can have criticism, as long as people are respectful and civil, it can go on for a while. Although this is a public meeting that we're at, it's not a boxing match, and we don't have 9 rounds to go through. At some point, you just have to wind it down, and you got to figure out a way. And like I said, I've been very fortunate that I haven't had that experience virtually ever in office. Mayor?
Thank you. Master of deflection. I say that because this just dawned on me. Sometimes I'll get a phone call, Mayor, what are you gonna do about this pothole in front of my house? I said, well, there's nothing I can do, but I know who to call. And then everything just takes a sharp hairpin turn and we're on to the next thing, because that's not my job. My job, as I mentioned earlier, is ceremonial and judicial. Ceremonial, no problem. Who doesn't love a wedding? You know, proclamation. Every time I see Roger Reynolds, Roger says, okay, proclaim something, Mayor. Yeah? So he's got his own personal proclamation service and so forth, so it's fun. Mayor's Court, however, is a very serious situation in that it is, as I mentioned at the start, a statutory court and is to be taken very seriously. So I honestly, I was just preparing my report for council before I came in this room, and I have totaled 119 court sessions over the 8 years that I've been mayor, 119. Now, back in the day when I was cited to mayor's court myself in 1983 for dog at large because Shoni ran out of the fence one time and a neighbor complained, there were probably 20 people in those mayor's courts. Now, because of the efforts of the Justice System Task Force and the good people who came together to try to bring changes to our legal system here in the village, the police have, I don't want to get sidetracked, but the police have changed their approach to the way they handle traffic stops or incidences out in the field. More warnings, more things that they let slide, quite literally. Things have changed. They have conversations with the people in the car, and they say, next time do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to let you go on this one, and so forth. So there are a lot of changes. So how do I deal with conflict? Maybe there's somebody that walks out of mayor's court and say, by God, I'm going to appeal this and I'm going to go to Xenia Municipal. And that happened once, not because of anything I did, but because it was a registered nurse and she was caught puffing in her car and she could have lost her license. And so I'll tell you this, it's public record. She came with a lawyer, and she get up in there, and of course my eyes got big, and I started going through the rights and everything that's required by law that you do in mayor's court. And he looks at her and he goes, is this mayor's court? And I said, yes, sir, it is. And he goes, oh, he said, thank you, Your Honor. And he said, come on, we're out here. And he took her to Xenia where the case was dismissed, or the charge was reduced, which I can't do. I can dismiss, but I cannot reduce a charge. So, at any rate, this is why I ran for mayor. I bowed down to Rebecca, I bowed down to Carmen.
Thanks, Pam. All right, thanks to the panelists for answering those questions. Now we're gonna invite questions from you. I think you're gonna take some notes in case we.
If there's anything that we can't address here, or ideas that people have for another session, or another question,
Which we can do it. Yeah, sure. Did you have a question?
Yes, I did.
Okay, sure. Just one second. I'll bring you the microphone. So I'll bring the microphone. If anybody have questions, right off the hand. Actually, if you don't mind, I'm not letting go of this microphone. Can you just kind of see a show of hands of folks who have questions ready for Talks True? And that won't be your last chance. I just want to know a couple of them so I can start. All right, True.
I totally feel like I'm an educator. I don't need a mic either. But this is for Mayor Pam, a couple questions, because I truly believe you have an important role. And because you are still a judge.
Can everybody stand who's asking?
Yes, of course. You are a judge. And so my couple of questions are, how did it feel the very first case where these people are in front of you? Like, it's not like, I love how you said these people are right, but you're a judge, right? And then secondly, how much time do you get before they're in front of you to look over that thick book and find out different things that you want to know, you know what I'm saying, before you're speaking to them. Peace.
That's a really good question, Truth. Is this on?
No, it's not.
Just press the button there.
It's on the side.
Old school.
Got it.
Here it is, got it. It's a good question. In actual fact, I'm not a judge. In actual fact, I am a arbitrator in a mayor's court. And I can't wear a black robe because I'm not a lawyer, so forth and so on. All of this is explained before we're allowed to sit and hold a mayor's court. You get one whole day of training in Columbus, at which I asked, there were 34 other new mayors in the room with me, and I was curious, and you know how they do before lunch, they say, okay, does anybody have any final questions? And I raised my hand and I stood, and I said, how many of you in this room are mayors who run a mayor's court and you are not a lawyer or a magistrate or a judge? And 3 hands went up out of 38 people, and of course I made 4, so it was like less than 10%, my Lord. Most people use magistrates or lawyers or whatever. Now my attitude always has been, because of the number of cases we have, I didn't want to put that cost on the village of hiring a magistrate or a lawyer or they have traveling circuit judges that, and I've talked to some of them, say, hey, we can do some of the other mayor's courts in the areas and come in and do yours. So how much will that cost for a session? I think it hit me with something like, $500 for, this, that, and the other. And I thought, $500? I'm a squeaker. I buy my own postage stamps for stuff I send out as mayor. So by golly, that one will float with me. Plus, I figure if I can handle 7th and 8th graders, I can handle mayor's court. And that always has proven to be true. I do study, you get a copy of the citation, Truth, before court. Usually it's about a week before. And then I have an opportunity to go to my book and look up the ordinance if that's necessary. After a while, you sort of get to know the more common ones. And you read all the information you're given, which now includes the police officers, if it's a criminal case or if it's a traffic stop, you get to look at the film of their cams, what do you call those? Blind body cams. And you get to look at the camera that is in the police vehicle and what they are saying to the person that is the potential defendant. So you get all that information, you weigh it against the information you're given on the ticket. You can ask the bailiff, who isn't necessarily the arresting officer or the officer who wrote the ticket. There's always a bailiff in the courtroom to preserve order and just there, safety if needed and so forth. So but you don't want to be using that bailiff as a prosecutor. So at any rate, there's a lot of rules and regulations that go into that. So I hope that answered your question.
Excellent. Thank
If you need more information, you see me.
Thanks, Tim. Sure. And if you guys have questions for a particular panelist, you can ask them like Truth did of Pam. If you want to hear from responses from each of the folks, then they can answer. I told them that if they had a response to some of your question, if they weren't asked, then they could chime in too. Amy?
I'm guessing this will be a complicated question to answer, but I'm curious for the different roles about how much time, like what are the specific requirements for the number of meetings per month and how much time outside of those meetings you dedicate to your roles on average?
Who wants to start? Anybody else who has a question? Raise their hand.
So I have a mic, I'll start. So we have one regular monthly meeting. We have a scheduled workshop also once a month, so that would be 2 times a month. We also, though, sometimes have special meetings called or turn that workshop into a special meeting. So I would say I spend several hours, 4 or 5 hours preparing for the monthly meeting, and that's mostly to go over the documents, the mini documents that are posted that we're going to be voting on. And the special meetings usually have, depending on the issue, between a couple of hours to several hours, or even several hours over the course of a few days. Sometimes we go into executive session to deal with legal issues, and then we get a briefing by our legal counsel on those issues. And then we also have the process of evaluating our 2 lead administrators, the superintendent and the treasurer. I'm currently president. That does also take extra time, and so a bit of a rambling answer that you do have to have time to do this. And the school board has been, I think, particularly tasked particularly with more things to do because of the building project, and I was also on the construction committee for that. So those were extra meetings every 2 weeks, and reviewing all of the building documents. That was a heavy lift. So, at times last year it would be 40 hours a month, easy. But I think that don't let that scare you, because it's a very different, I think, trajectory for the amount of time you would spend going forward. And I don't know if Amy is still in here. I'd love to hear her chime in on this, or ask her as well. My fellow school board member, Amy Bailey, is here. Thank you for coming. She was elected at the same time I was, so she's not up for election this year. And it can just vary. Now, in July, I will probably spend 5 hours this month on school board business.
It really depends on what's happening. That's it. So 2 to 3 hours twice a month for council meetings, and sometimes if there's an executive session, it's an hour before. And then sometimes we have a little bit of conversation after those meetings. Public Arts and Cultural Commission meets once a month, that's 2 hours. Environmental Commission, when we start meeting again once a month, that's 2 hours. Working to prepare with the chairs to prepare agendas and minutes. It really varies depending upon what's happening. Obviously, if we have more pressing legislation and things that it varies. I mean, that's all I can say. I think it's different than sitting down like at a job, right? Yeah. So you get it in where you can fit it in. Like, okay, I'm on my lunch break. I need to finish reading this packet. It's 200 pages. Okay, I need to make this phone call or do this email. But it's really hard for me to determine, to put a number out on it, because I just haven't. Because I think that I'm really crap. I think I cry tears. You gotta get it in where it fits.
Thank you, Carmen. I'm with her. It's
crying.
Yeah. It's really difficult to put a number on, because in this office, you don't have a time clock. You just put in the time that you need to get whatever the project is that's completed, or the issue that's in front of you, or of course there's board meetings, there's commissions. These are all in Greene County that you go to. There's Township Trustee Association meetings. There's state meetings. There's zillions of meetings, and that's over and above the time that you spend doing the work that's necessary in the office, in your office. Just to kind of, I always remember when I first was appointed, I just felt like a sponge. I needed to absorb everything I could. And I did have a business that I needed to run, so I would come in when I was fresh. I would come in for a long time. It seemed like forever, but it was probably 2 weeks or so. I come in at 4 o'clock in the morning into the office, and I would meticulously go through every file, every set of minutes back into the 50s, 60s. That's as far back as we had it in the office. Just playing everything I could find in order to get up to speed and or to get as knowledgeable as I can about what's happened in the past. Because like everything else, history repeats itself. And so a fence dispute in 1963 out on Harbison Road between this farmer and this farmer, which we're responsible for taking care of fence disputes. That's a wonderful job. Can give you some insight into if that comes up again relatively soon. And so I've been working my way into our archives, into our records room, which sounds very official, but it's a little hunk of Quonset held out of Fairfield. But there's just tons and tons and tons of historical documents in there. And I would just paw through those endlessly. It seemed endlessly. At some point, I guess I came to the end because I quit doing that. Now, time spent, in actuality. Again, it depends, but you could spend, I've known trustees, I've worked with trustees, might have spent 3 hours total between township meetings, doing whatever they thought was important. Or you could spend 30 hours in between township meetings working on whatever project you're working on. I fell on the high end, or I fall on the higher end of that scale, I feel. I put a fair amount of time in. I don't have to if I don't want to. You don't have to if you don't want to either, if you get elected to the board. But again, this is not a job. This is not for the money. It's not for the benefits. It's for public service. And if you can't commit yourself to doing the public service that has been done before you for 213 years, townships were there before the state was the state, you shouldn't run for the office. Please, take your name off the ballot if that's all you really want is a job and health benefits. That's my spiel.
Carmen and Chris, I'm glad you mentioned the word job, because I try to use that word in association with being there. It's not a job. Right. I call it going to the office. Okay? I wanted an office here in this building, and I wanted to hold office hours. So I got the office, and I invented office hours for the mayor, 1 to 5, quantifiable, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons, unless I'm out doing something in the village of service. So there's that. The other things on Tuesday and Thursday, that's when I plug in my personal business. But Lord knows, if somebody wants to get married, if somebody wants a proclamation, if somebody has a ribbon they want cut at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, or they want to get married on Sunday afternoon at 9 o'clock in the morning at the covered bridge or at the Yellow Spring, okay, that's cool, I'm there. So I try to be flexible in that regard. So those are the things I like to call activities. Part of being the mayor, I feel, and I haven't said this yet, is being an ambassador for the village. I used to use the word cheerleader, but that's not one of my favorite words. But being an ambassador for the village and going to just about every meeting that I'm invited to within the county and even the state. So representing Yellow Springs. And on more than one occasion, I've actually had somebody say, when I show up at a meeting with my little neighbor, oh, we get somebody from Yellow Springs here, great. That's never happened, unless it's Brian Housh. So, going to the office and doing as many things as I can to be of service out in the larger community. Those things are sort of quantifiable by count, but not quantifiable by hours and time. So it's going to vary. And what I would say to anybody who wants to be mayor is, don't try to do what I did. Make it your own, make it your own, make it your own. That's the beauty of the job. Yeah, you got to run mayor's court, you got to marry people, cut ribbons, and do proclamations, but other than that, make it your own. Maybe you don't want an office. I'm a paper person. I wanted a place I could leave all my stuff. I got enough going on in my house. I wanted all of this stuff in one spot here so I could organize it here, and that's what I did. And that's worked out.
Okay, thank you. We are running short on time, so we got about 5 minutes left before we can break and put chairs away and whatnot. But we have one final question. That's right, and then we'll have a chance to do that. We have one final question. Could you stand up?
Just listening to all the time that you put in, I wonder how you get feedback from the voters other than at the public comment section of your meetings. Do you have times when you're, at the Emporium and you can come and meet with, Rebecca, or you can come and meet with Carmen, whatever? How do you learn what people's opinions and wishes are, since you're not going to Facebook?
Thank you.
So I am downtown several times a day, every day. And people stop me several times a day, every day, no matter where I am. Emporium, Tom's, Speedway, grabbing a Gatorade. And my phone number is also listed on my village email address. If you go to me, you can do that. You can call me. And people email, and I'm not great at communicating that way. I'm better in person because of some of my very special and spectacular learning style. So I'm available I'm just available. And like I said, my number's on the thing. If I don't recognize your number, if you leave a message, I'll check back.
I started out with a time in the Emporium once a week, and I took the idea from Lori. I was so impressed with that. I had a heck of a time sticking to that time as a college professor. You're a college professor too. It's the same time every week that's a killer, So I did that for a few months, but then I also started to notice that similar people, often people who are already in the Emporium, having a coffee come over, and so I let that fade. But school boards are a little different because the best and the most important form of communication about schools is between parents and teachers and our administrators, and you don't necessarily want to interfere with that. On the other hand, just like Carmen said, being out there and getting that kind of feedback, talking to people who would attend our school board meetings, and it was great, a lot of involvement there. It, I think, does help if you like to talk with people. If you don't, though, I did want to say that I think someone who is a kind of private person who is very organized and doesn't necessarily organize, say, parties and teams and such, can really effectively run for office and definitely do a very, very good job in that office. And especially for school board. And so I want to encourage you to run for school board. And I got these pamphlets. I got pamphlets from the Ohio Board of Education to show you how. So do pick up one because it's such important work. We also get to talk to kids, which is great. And we have our awards that we have at each meeting. We talk to parents. We have an amazing PTO. And on the school board level, there are just so many ways of getting that feedback that's perhaps maybe a little different than the other offices.
Well, since my physical area is roughly 25 square miles, it's hard to get to a lot of that area on a consistent basis, although I do almost weekly go out and drive all the roads, township roads. We have 15 miles of township roads. The rest of them are county roads. Anyway, so I can't really have like open hours out on the corner of Carlson and Wilberforce Clifton Road. But I have gone to Clifton Council meetings. I've gone to Yellow Springs Council meetings. have, I like to go to the Clifton Old Fashioned Days, and of course, the things in the village here that goes without saying. I do a lot of county meetings. Like I'll go to the Cattlemen's Association meeting every few years, and a lot of the people in Miami Township also go there because they're agricultural-based people or animal-based people. And now I'm forgetting my little meetings that I go to, but that's pretty much all. That's a lot of my communication. Well, I'm also 21st century. I have an email. I have a township email. I have a personal email. I have a telephone. I have 2 telephones. And people call me, and people email me, and I try and get back to them as best I can, as fast as I can, with as accurate information that they're asking me. So it's sort of a running process to keep in touch with people.
Thank you, Chris.
Real quickly, the big thing is the office hours. Another big thing is just listening to people. A lot of people call with their opinions, or they'll write an email or send a text, even a short text. I'm concerned about this, that, or the other. And I'll say, fine, I'll call you. And I do, and I follow up and have a conversation with folks so that at least they feel like they're heard. And then I take those notes with their permission from the conversations, and I send them on to the right person, whether it's a zoning issue or whether it's a village manager issue or whatever it is. I can shoot it. Is it streets? Is it water? I can shoot it in the right direction. So that helps. And I guess that's all I want to say about that, because I'm downtown a lot. I run into people, talk constantly. So.
Thank you, Pam. And thanks to our panelists again for answering questions. And for serving our community in the ways that they do. Thank you for that. But hopefully this is just the start of some conversations for all of you as you're thinking about it. And if you're thinking about running for office and you have questions about whether or not that might be work, consider working with a candidate who is running for office. As each of these guys said, they have a team of people who are helping. So if that's a place where you feel more comfortable right now, being a treasurer or supporting as a volunteer, then consider that as well. And serving on commissions, as Pam said, there are other ways to serve our community other than to be elected. I also want to mention that Brian Hausch, you want to raise your hand there, Brian, is a village council member, has said that he's happy to answer any questions that you have about council, if you have other questions. Amy Bailey is back there. As Rebecca said, she is also on the school board. She has also agreed to answer any questions that you have. So if you want to talk further, those are other options. Of course, you can talk to the panelists as well. Now, if you would bring we want to make sure we can chat for a little bit here too, but if you bring your chair back to the back room, then we can put those away and we'll be more than on our way to being out of here by 9. And please do not leave here without taking some refreshments. You can't leave those with Marianne. Thank you.